might be my most prolific year at the LA Times in terms of everything that I wrote about, everything that I covered.
I think we know why he's
the awards, proclamation for Congress, I was kicking ass in 2024, and yet I find myself completely uncomfortable. As much as I resisted even just having my name out there first on anything, the reality is I kind of run out of places to hide. I keep next level. There is no next level for me. I've worked at basically every major newspaper, every major television station, and I've worked in all the major cities. The next level is just me. I've built a career looking at the intersection of sports, NBA gets it right, culture, because you wanted to check my black card, and politics. I see it as a reflection of this will continue to be an extension of that.
If the money's no good or the location.
To find a comedian who believes that,
Welcome to the LZ Granderson Show. Welcome to the LZ Granderson Show. I am your host, LZ, and today is Thursday, July 16th, and here are the three things I'm looking at and why. First, the mighty so-called man of MAGA. Daddy told you no, and now the whole world is looking to see what you're going to do about the Epstein files. Remember way back in the day when you were like, we're the protector of women and children. We're going to stop trafficking. We want these files out. We want to expose the pedophiles. Well, Daddy told you no. Now what you going to do? He doesn't really need you anymore because it's already in the White House. So how exactly are you going to... Are you going to fight him? Or are you just going to shut the fuck up like he told you to? And that's why I'm looking at you. Second, the NBA. In the past 8 seasons, we've seen 8 different champions. So while OKC looks pretty dominant right now, the fact of the matter is the trend is saying they're not going to repeat. So I'm looking forward to the NBA because of all of this player movement that's been happening. And I can't wait to see which franchise comes out of the East because it won't be Boston and it won't be Indy. And I'm really curious to see if all these great signings that the Clippers have done, if they're going to... Never mind. And third, the big interview today is with actor-singer Noah Reid. Now, some of you may know him as David's boyfriend from Schitt's Creek, and others may know him as Tommy Tillerson from Amazon's Outer Range. But this fall, he's actually embarking on a 36-city tour to promote his latest release because he's also a singer. Now, those of you from Schitt's Creek, you know him from Tina Turner's Simply the Best was a revelation. But for what it's worth, I think that Apollo from his first album, Songs from a Broken Chair, is actually a better tune. We talk about that. We talk about parenting. And we talk about being a Canadian touring in America while, all this shit's going on. You know how Beyonce had her album, I Am Sasha Fierce? Mm-hmm. That is literally how I function in this spectrum. There's LZ and then there's the media person. And this is my opportunity to try to merge those two crazy people together, see if I can have some cohesiveness.
Great. Cohesiveness is what it's all about. Yeah, for sure. And well, I don't know. It's a funny dance in this business, which you're a journalist, but it's it's show business adjacent where there is a performative personality. You kind of have this blend of your real self and then your professional self and a performative self, and how those things all mix together is it's alchemy. You kind of don't know. I never know what, I don't know how many years or decades into my professional world, and I'm where do I end? And then the performance ends. I don't really know anymore,
Does that fuck with you at all? Wondering if you're Noah or if you're Noah.
Yeah, totally. I think my goal is really for there to be no difference between any of it. But that's not very achievable because I don't want to show, certain parts of myself to everybody, But I don't know. It's interesting. I started doing being an actor when I was a kid, and it's having some sense that you can communicate something, or that people are watching you or expecting something from you is an ingrained thing that as an adult and as a parent now I'm starting to kind of, try to tease apart and go, okay, what is that good for you? How do you manage that? I don't know.
it's interesting that you would bring that up now because I'm actually kind of going through this process myself. I am a journalist, right? And I've been a journalist my entire adult life. And I've come to understand that means I have actually, under one perspective or another, been under the public eye and been in the public eye my entire adult life. And that I actually don't know what it's like to walk into a space and not observe, or to walk into a space and not, wonder why someone's observing me.
Right.
Like it's not just they're looking at me for, just because they're just looking. I don't know if they recognize me. I don't know what they recognize me from. I'm not sure how they feel about what I've said, in this current cultural and political climate. If you're looking at me in Texas, I might think about that differently if you're looking at me in Manhattan, so.
Well, for sure. I was going to say, like, I don't know that there's, I'm not like a student of history in the way that I kind of wish I was, but I feel like this is a really tough and high pressure moment to be a journalist and to kind of like the responsibility that I'm sure that you feel to kind of like to the truth and to objectivity and to decency and to all of these things that we find ourselves up against in this pressure cooker of a time. It's really must be very, very intense.
It is intense. And, you made the illusion that there's some dynamic or some connectivity between the performing artists or the creatives and journalism. Well, I think that's still true in terms of this time, in terms of being an artist. I was at your show in Ann Arbor and you kind of made like this flippant joke about, how weird it is to be a Canadian right now touring in America. And certainly, maybe some of the things you may have wanted to quip and say, maybe 5 or 6 years ago on stage, maybe you second guess. I remember the Chicks, and the controversy that they had during the beginning of the war and after 9/11, and what they said overseas and how that derailed, in some aspects some may say invigorated their careers,
Sure. Yeah. But it is interesting that I did, that was the first time on this, I just did 6 or 8, maybe 7 solo shows in America. And it's kind of at that time, even things have changed a little bit since then, or not even a little bit, but there's been a lot at that time. There was a lot of 51st state talk was going on. I don't think we'd had our federal election yet. It's a strange, or maybe we had, I don't even remember, but it was a strange time to be.
No, you actually, you had not, when you started doing your tour, you had not had your election yet.
Right. So we were kind of in Canada was in a kind of a strange moment of which way are we going to go? And that always is a kind of a reflection of what's happening in the States. We kind of politically and everything, entertainment, everything is a balancing off of the American situation. So we were kind of not really sure which direction we were headed. And I think, there was, for a lot of Canadian touring artists, there's a big conversation of is it responsible to be, going to the States? I mean, that's how most, Canadian musicians make their annual, that's how they make their living, is touring in the States, because it's a way bigger market. You can't make a year out of touring Canada. There's only a handful of markets and they're all very far away. And, and in my experience, the Canadian promoters don't want to pay you anything. America's more in tune with the fact that things are a business. And particularly the entertainment industry is a viable business. But it was funny to be there. And you're right, you do kind of, I did feel myself kind of watching what I was saying, being a little bit more calculated, not knowing the audience who's on which side. It was very different to play in, say, Ann Arbor, Michigan, or Kent, Ohio, than it was to play in Florida. But most of the places that I was in were swing states, So, and I know that probably predominantly the people that are coming to my show, they're coming because they've seen me in Schitt's Creek. That's a fairly,
you would think you're good. you would think you're good, but you know what, man?
Never know.
You never know. It's like that scene in White Lotus, season 2. Here comes a spoiler in case you hadn't seen it. The 3 ladies are all sitting around the table and they go, "Oh, girl, Austin done changed you." They didn't know.
Right. Totally. Totally. And I can imagine that my sister lived in Detroit for a number of years, and she would highlight to me that like in Trump's first presidency, like a big thing that changed is that you weren't sure who you were talking to. And so you kind of like, you felt like opinions that could have been just like easy conversation before started to feel a little bit tighter. You started to feel a little bit more, almost like a paranoia that you weren't safe to have your thoughts open, because you might just be under some kind of, and it's hard to know if that's internal, if that's external, if it's a mix of both things. But it does inform the artist perspective, where you start to feel, okay, actually, do I have a responsibility to be a little bit more vocal, or do I have a responsibility to my own internal thing, or is it better just to keep the stuff to myself? So I don't know, man. And I think artists have a little bit more of probably leeway to make a decision, whereas journalists, like the job is pretty front facing, and there is a bit more of a push and a drive, just naturally in the position. I mean, I would imagine. I don't know.
It's a tricky time, because there's the aspect of the business of journalism, just like the business of artistry. And then there's the calling of journalism, or what we're supposed to do. And oftentimes those two missions are against one another. And that was before we had what is known as corporate America. Now we actually have a corporate America that's being run by people with other business interests in addition to the media companies that they own. And so there's a balancing act for them in their portfolio, and thus becomes a balancing act for everyone who's of their employ. And,
Right.
I struggle. I have always written, Noah, multiple versions of columns that actually gets published. But more and more I find the versions that I have written that don't get published are filled with curse words and, a lot of fuck you motherfuckers, and that's just can't run in the paper, so I have to figure out how to express that in a way that can actually pass, ways and means. So
Right.
it has been a challenge. I have not spoken the truth, but how I speak the truth now, and the manner in which I try to speak the truth has changed. To your point. And it's not because I'm fearful, but it's really because I'm trying to cast as wide a net as possible. And it's abundantly clear that, saying, fuck you, motherfucker, fuck, it's probably not going to win a lot of people over. So just,
Right.
right. Just trying to figure things out. So I'm curious as you move forward, particularly as a singer-songwriter. A lot of people know you from Schitt's Creek and didn't know that you had that in you until that romantic episode with David. But you've been a musician basically concurrently as you've been an actor in Canada. And I'm just curious, as a songwriter, do you imagine what we're living through right now making its way onto some of your songs?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think my last record, Adjustments, was a real reflection of the pandemic and the kind of like the period of intensity that was. That's a time that was covering a lot of ground, a lot of isolation, a lot of like racial tension in the States, and a lot of, I think the city of Toronto was where I'm from, and love deeply was like in the process of like, just tearing down a bunch of our like cultural heritage buildings. I felt like everything was like changing in such a crazy fast way. And so, I thought a lot about this quote that I love from Nina Simone, that she says like the responsibility of the artist is to reflect the times. And so I'm going, okay, well, what do I have to contribute to this conversation that's not an Instagram post saying racism is bad? Like how do I, as an artist, like we know that, but how do I contribute meaningfully to the conversation, and where do I place myself within that, and what standard do I hold myself to? And so that started to come out in the songwriting, I think. And so now, I mean, I wasn't a father then, so I had a little bit more time to parse those things for myself. And now with an almost 3-year-old, I kind of, a lot of that time is spent, just talking to him about what he's seeing throughout the day, that really keeps me kind of present and grounded and not retreating into myself or even with almost as much time for self-reflection. But I find that, my songwriting now, the songs are fewer and farther between. Because I just don't have the same time to like sit down and figure it out. But I do think that a lot of that is, being a dad is definitely factoring into my songwriting. It's kind of, I'm thinking about what do I want to communicate, not just to my audience or to the world or to myself, but also to my son and to the future generations of what do I think is valuable to pass on? What do I feel like is like worth it to explain? And so, yeah, that's starting to kind of shape how I write songs and even how I approach, what place does like creativity have in my life, and what time do I have to execute it? It's those pockets are smaller. And so they feel like, it feels almost higher stakes to me that I have to make it count. When I have 20 minutes to sit at the piano, I gotta find something within that time period that makes sense to me. And if it doesn't, then okay, it's out. And I got to move on to like, maybe I'll write a kid's song, like
Is that your process? Do you have a dedicated, like, for instance, as a journalist, as a writer, I have a process, right? It involves, finding the right music. Sometimes it's Chopin, sometimes it's Thelonious Monk, sometimes it's John Coltrane, sometimes it's Kendrick.
Right.
But there's always a soundtrack and there's a smell. So I have to figure out which incense, or is it going to be a candle? There's a tea, or maybe there's a bourbon. Like, there is a total process that, people who have lived with me or my husband, they all know, like, oh boy, John Coltrane's playing, somebody's about to start writing. So I'm curious for you, is there an aspect of the process that is just inherently just embedded into your approach to writing, songwriting?
I mean, that sounds incredible to me. And I wish I do feel the need to cultivate that a little bit more than I used to.
No, you don't, brother. It's too much. I realize.
No, I don't know. I mean, I do think those things that like put you into a space, because I mean, I think it's why athletes rely so much on routine and and like a repeatable action that you can do, that you can take the magic out of the equation if you cultivate the situation where the magic can arrive. Inspiration is not a reliable commodity. So, and I think for a long time I've like relied on that to be like, okay, well, when I'm inspired, then that's when I can do this thing. But that's, I'm coming to terms with the fact that that's like a hobbyist mentality, really. If I want to be a professional songwriter, I've been reading this book, Jeff Tweedy's book, which is called "Let's Go So That We Can Come Back" or something. And he describes like going to find Woody Guthrie's. He got kind of hired to do this Mermaid Avenue record, which was reinterpreting all of Woody Guthrie's unfinished songs and putting music to them with Billy Bragg and Wilco. And he like discovered this note that Woody Guthrie had written that said like, write a song every day, which is like, I mean, if you think about like, sometimes it takes me months to finish a song. I'm like, okay, I'm clearly not that serious of a songwriter if I can't like at least a week, And I think Guthrie's thing is like, and Jeff Tweedy's interpretation of it is like, it doesn't have to be great, but you put yourself in the way of something to arrive. You can't wait for inspiration. You have to set yourself up for inspiration to arrive. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with process. And I would say that like as a songwriter, I don't have a process, and I can feel now that I don't have a process because it's feeling harder within the constraints of my own, domestic life or professional life, because I have this kind of, I'm working two jobs, kind of this like music thing and the acting thing. And that's great when I can, switch from one to the other. But they're both such kind of, right now, they're both too unpredictable. And I need I think the songwriting is the more, that's something I can choose a little bit more. And so I do find myself needing, and part of that is like, I'm setting up a studio space that I just can go into and control that environment and, you know, keep some kind of office hours there. Cause I do think that that's a part of
That's
the
all it
creative process.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, I like to create a sandbox for myself.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes that environment that I talked about, I don't have anything that's due, but I like constantly creating that environment so that something could be happen. Something could cross my mind. Something could, in terms of, you know, the reporting part is the science part of journalism. And there is a method and there's a criteria that needs to be met. And every journalist that's worth anything follows that. But then there's the art part of the science. And that's individual, right? And that's when you get to sort of insert yourself a little bit more. And that's why I like creating that's environment for myself constantly, because the science is going to be something that I need to go out and seek. And the art is something that just needs to always just be. You know, I don't want to be in a position where I need to create art and science at the same time to get something done.
Totally. But I feel like that's also like that. That's kind of how I feel as a parent, where I'm like, okay, like what's my, like, there are the things that need to be done that always need to be done. There is the kind of run of show of the day. We need to hit meals and snacks and naps, and we need to be prepared for accidents. And we need to have a change of clothes, and we need to have this and that. And then there's like the kind of the art side of it, which is like being present and having conversations and being open to like, okay, let's go look at that thing because we just saw it right now. Let's go investigate it. Let's ask questions about it. Oh, let's go play with that kid. Let's ask them questions. Let's, you know, the kind of being present element of it, which I feel like, you know, a lot of being an artist or whatever that is like, that's the side of parenting that I feel I can really excel at. And the science part of it, which is the kind of more structured element of it, I'm like, oh, I'm behind. I need to make myself a journal. I need to make a list. I need to get on top of
man.
it. Yes, exactly.
It's not even 3.
There's room for improvement, LZ. There's room for improvement.
My son is almost 10 times that age, and I'm still fine tuning. You know, still trying to make sure. You know, I sometimes, and I'm not even joking, Noah. Sometimes I'll wake up and be like, "Shit, did I tell him this?" because I'm not going to always be here, you know? And and it's like, I have like these weird thoughts of him being 45 and like, he never told me about a will. Now what am I supposed to do? Like, or something, you know, like, I feel like I didn't grow up with my father, right? So I'm piecing it all together. I got a little bit of John Q in me. Actually, I have too much John Q in me, to be quite honest with you. I got a little bit of Tony Soprano. I got a little bit of this. And so it's all mixed in there. And the one thing that's perpetually like haunting me is me not being here and me forgetting something in terms of being a man or being a functional adult that he needs. And I forgot to tell him.
Well, listen, man, I'll tell you this. Like I did grow up with my father, and now whenever I encounter something that I don't know, I blame him fully for me not knowing it. So you're
see,
like it can't be my fault. It must be his fault. He should have showed me this.
I 1000% knew it. I knew that was a real thing. I remember when his freshman year in college, and I went to go visit him. And when he was in high school, he didn't have a lot of facial hair, but for some reason, he got to college and boom, there's like strings everywhere. Yeah. And I was like, shit, I never taught him how to shave. I didn't need to. Now I do, but now he's here. What do I do? like it was like, and so I kind of brought it by going, hey, what are we planning on doing with these various strings of hair sticking out of our face? You know, maybe, perhaps I should show you La Shave, you know, like, and he's like, Dad, I know how to shave. I'm just seeing what happens. Yeah. So I was like, oh, all right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of being a dad so far?
Oh man, my son started talking. I don't know what on the scale of like, early or late, but he just started talking when he was around 2, maybe a little before he was 2, he was putting words together, and it's just been so. I just like hearing him talk. Like I just like
Wow.
talking to him because he's so funny, and I think I underestimated how entertaining it would be to
Huh.
be a parent. Like I thought that, I got stressed out about the responsibility element, or like, oh, now I can never just like move to another country because I feel like it. But I underestimated it, like how funny it is. Like every morning I ask him, if he's had any dreams, and the stuff that comes out of his mouth is spectacular. Like I've started
Wow.
writing it down because I'm like, this is, and I know it will change. But I think also like the exponential growth element is incredible to witness. Like I was just away for 2 weeks and I came back and he's like significantly bigger, smarter, speaking differently. I'm like, that is crazy to witness in real time. Just that kind of, the turnover of the cellular structure. It's like it's really, really wild. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think, obviously as a semi musician, I'm like, I want to get going on music early, and I love, like, we sing and we jam together, and it's like that part is ridiculous and wonderful. Honestly, just being with him. He's a big popsicle guy. So sometimes the best part of the day is when we get a popsicle and sit on the church steps up the street and just, sit there and watch the world go by. I maintain that, like, parenting is the most fun you can have as long as you have nothing else to do. Uh, as soon as you have something you need to do, then you're like, oh my God, how is this going to happen? Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm having an amazing time with it, and it's the most tired and stressed I've ever been. So it's all of the cliche things they say about being a parent have turned out to be annoyingly true.
It is awesome. And I had my son young. I was like 22 or something like that. I was married at 21 at the time. And so my 20s and 30s were not out in the streets in Vegas getting drunk and partying. I was being a dad and trying to figure it out in the whole nine,
Right.
which prepared me to be on this portion of life as a middle-aged man, almost like a sage among my friends, because they're all just going through this process. I'm like going, oh yeah, don't worry, by 10, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I have all this sage wisdom because I've already been through a fire. It's not, all fires are not the same, but the one I went through now, all of a sudden I feel as if I can just start dispensing wisdom and fatherly knowledge.
Totally. And I feel like you're also like, if you're enough removed from the immediate situation, then it's not like, then you don't feel as like toe steppy in parenting world. I feel like friends of mine that have like a child who's like, 6 months older than mine, and they're like, oh, just wait for this. I'm like, don't, you don't know enough. You're not wise enough to be imparting this. But someone with older kids, I'm like, yeah, what was this like? How did that work? So I feel like that's a good, you got to have a few of those people in your life who have walked through that fire and gone, we came out the other side. It was good.
It's all right. It's like, usually they're called grandparents, but
Right.
sometimes, sometimes you gotta make do with your little family of choice.
That's it.
Speaking of family of choice, Schitt's Creek, do you miss that family?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like every show that you do, you gain this, you gather this group and you're a family for that time. And then, you move on past that show and you're not sure, how present those people are going to be in your life. And I think, with Schitt's Creek, because we did the live shows, I don't even remember how many shows we did before the pandemic. We were supposed to do more. But we traveled as a band effectively, it was like just I look back at that time and go like, man, that was so special to get to do that with that group of people. And because, everyone's away from home and you're all contributing to the same thing. You're staying in the same place. You go for meals. You get those little in between moments that you don't even necessarily get on set. And yeah, and then we went through all the awards stuff together which was bizarre because so much of it happened, we went to lots of award shows and were nominated for lots of awards before we started winning, but then we won everything during the pandemic. So we weren't, we weren't there doing that stuff. We were kind of like, when we won all the Emmys, we were like in this tent at the back of Casa Loma in Toronto and like on TV, I guess, but like it was so strange. So yeah, I have just an infinite amount of love and respect for that group. The core group and also like the crew that put that show together, and year after year we'd kind of come back and see the same faces and a few new faces. And yeah, I mean, I don't see anybody as much as I would like to, but we're still in contact. One of my favorite things that happened this last year is that Eugene Levy hit me up and was like, "Do you want to go see a baseball game? Do you want to go to the Jays game?" He's got great tickets to the Jays, and I was like, "Eugene,
like the scene in the show,
dude, yes, yeah." It honestly, like, incredible, a full circle moment. And we're just sitting there, like, eating popcorn and watching the game. And he's going like, they got so many sounds happening here, like all this music and bang, boom, bang, and all these screens. Why does it have to be so? And I'm like, I love this so much.
it's so funny.
So beautiful.
So, who did you see?
It was the Jays. I think maybe it was Houston.
Okay.
But God, yeah, I don't even remember now. I was just like looking at Eugene most of the time, I guess. But a truly, truly, truly special moment for me. He
That's
came to
awesome.
my house. He came and picked me up at my house and drove me to the game like a gentleman,
That is so freaking cool.
I mean, can you imagine? You put that text. I'm like, yes, I'll clear my schedule, man. Let's go.
I did a fellowship at the Institute of Politics at the University of Chicago. And it's run by David Axelrod, who was the kind of like the brainchild that got President Obama elected in the States.
Right.
And so I'm teaching at this institute, and I'm just to be accepted as a fellow and to be able to teach at this school was great enough. This man took us to a baseball game. We went to the Cubs. True story. And I'm a huge baseball fan, right? And I'm just sitting there and I'm like going, this is kind of weird and yet kind of awesome. I'm sitting here watching the Cubs with, the man that kind of, got the first black man elected president. It was kind of wild, but it's a memory, like you said, it's just kind of always, kind of hold on to it. Chris Bryant, I believe, hit his first home run at that game.
No way.
The first home run of his career was at that game.
The first of many for him. Yeah,
first of many.
Oh, that's awesome. Wrigley is such a cool place, man. I've been there twice, and it feels like this portal into like kind of like golden era America somehow to me. I'm like, well, this is like, and so many, I mean, obviously I guess like every baseball team or professional sports team has to kind of like update their arena or their stadium to like for television and for everything. Mm-hmm. But Wrigley has been through so many of those things, like when they started playing night games and the neighborhood had to sign off on lights and the parking and all this stuff. Like, it's such a kind of it's so impressive when an organization or like a city or a fan base has that deep connection to like a place, and that this is where all that stuff happened. So nice that they finally won as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I look at the Cubs as like I hope we don't have to wait that long, but God, it's got to come soon,
I didn't realize what a huge baseball fan you were, or I guess you are rather.
I am, yeah. I'm a big Jays fan. I love sports. I think like sports are probably the biggest metaphor to me that like for what I do as an actor and a performer, that it's like so much stuff is out of your control. Maintaining a mental focus and a presence. The idea that you can't, particularly with baseball, that you can't really try harder and make it better. That you have to kind of try easy a little bit. and that you know, all of the preparation that you do, you have to kind of leave at the door and go out and just like take it as it comes. I think is a really like has been very useful to me mentally. Um, but yeah, I'm a sports fan of all
Did you
sports, really.
did you play growing up baseball or hockey? Since you're Canadian.
Yeah, I grew up playing hockey for sure. Yeah, and baseball I found kind of later. As a I never played baseball growing up, but I once I was an adult, I kind of like yeah just I think in Los Angeles when I was there for one of many pilot seasons in my early 20s, I found this like ragtag softball game and was like, oh, I can play this game. I like this. And it really kind of like, yeah, it took over my focus for a long time, baseball. I was like, oh, okay. Now every year I like throw like, or I used to throw a baseball, I called it the Baseball Birthday Classic. And interestingly, I invited Dan Levy when we started doing the show. I invited Dan to my Baseball Birthday Classic, and out of that, he made the Schitt's Creek baseball episode kind of based off of his experience in the field at that
How
game.
did he do?
I mean, he was great at the plate. I think he went like, yeah, he went like 3 for 4 with a triple. But in the field, not great in the field. Did not. I think he charged forward at a ball that was heading way over his head, and all of that made it into the script. So he kind of yeah. That was I credit myself there for that episode. I don't think people would have gotten to see Dan Levy play baseball if it weren't for me.
Exactly. So obviously with Schitt's Creek, you know, you walk away and everyone, if nothing else, remembers your version of Simply the Best. But then you go on to this Amazon show and you leave us a whole like T is for Tillerson. How does that come about? And like, was it your idea? Was it the show's idea? Like, was it the kid's idea? Like,
No, I doing Outer Range the first season. I'd never done anything like it. I think you know the character that I got to play, Billy Tillerson, was this kind of like otherworldly creature who seemed like he was like, I don't know, a bit like touched by what I don't know, like songs would arrive in his brain, and just like his way through life was just to kind of like sing, like he had a kind of like a radio dial in his brain or something, and the song choices that were coming from Brian Watkins, who was the creator of the show, were so unique and beautiful. They were all kind of in this era of like the kind of like late 70s into the early 90s, and and some big, you know, I think the audition scene was like singing Whitney Houston from The Bodyguard into the mirror in my tidy whities. Like I was like, okay, this is special, you know? And so when we got to the second season, and spoiler alert here, but you know, you've had time to watch it. So
right?
the second season, my character's kind of like in a coma for a lot of it. And so a lot of the second season was spent, you know, in pajamas. I didn't have a ton of shooting days. And on days where I was shooting, I wasn't particularly like physically involved. And so I wanted to continue my creative engagement with the show and the character. And while I was there for the first season, I had found this studio in Albuquerque, this studio called Rio Grande Studios, and I'd worked a little bit with this guy Kenny Riley, who was there when I did a song for Catherine O'Hara, and so I was like, oh, maybe I'll go back to that studio and I'll just record like this concept album that's like all the songs that my character has sung, but as if he had recorded them somewhere, like, you know, like the character of my character's mom has like is dating some record producer and he's got some space and time. And so I spent like, you know, probably a couple of weeks doing it just on days when I wasn't shooting. And I loved making it. It felt like just a way to kind of continue that journey of that character. And in case, you know, we didn't get a third season, I wanted to kind of send it off in a way, you know, and then in the end we didn't get a third season. So I'm glad I got some of those songs in while they were still present and top of mind for me. I miss that show a lot, and I miss that character, and so it's nice to have that little kind of memento to carry forward. Dee Dee O'Connell, who plays my mom in the show, who's just a phenomenal Tony Award winning actor, who's in The Penguin. She plays the Penguin's mom in the HBO show. Just a phenomenal actress, and I got her to do like a little like voice note to start the concept album, where she's like, I'm dating this guy and he's amazing. I think you should come up to Aspen and record this thing. She just like sent me that as a voicemail. And so that kind of starts off the concept record. I was really happy that she was able to do that.
I stumbled across the EP before I had started watching the show. Huh. And so I was like, I said, well, Noah's a great songwriter. Why would he do all these covers? And so then, I dug deeper and I was like going, oh, they're from the show. Let's see what's going on. Oh, Noah's half naked. This is a good show. Let's see what's going on now.
That's the criteria for a good show.
if there's a good looking guy that's half naked, you're probably going to get 15 to 20 minutes out of me, whether the script is good or not.
There you go.
And if you're good looking and there's a decent fight scene, you're probably going to have me for a whole movie. And that's why I've seen every single John Wick movie that's ever been made.
The great Keanu, man.
The great Keanu, man. I swear, if Keanu was ugly, he would not have John Wick 3 out there. No. Like it's just because it's just so it's so ridiculous that he's still alive. But I'm like going, well, I don't want him to die, so we're just going to ride with this.
The audience gets what the audience wants.
The audience gets what the audience wants. How many queer fans do you have hanging around, kicking the tires to see if you're straight or not?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't think any, but maybe. I mean, I don't really engage with very much social media, which is probably a detriment to my career, but I find it just like, I don't think it like feeds me much. And so I feel like that's probably where that happens. The people who come to my shows don't seem like they're tire kicking. It seems like they've come like, to like see their friends and to hear some music. And, I think for a long time I was like, oh, everybody just wants to hear Simply the Best. And I would play it. And then, now I don't play it anymore and nobody seems that mad. So that feels like a good kind of vote of confidence for the music. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't had a lot of people kind of, kicking tires, but my wife tells me that if you do a Google search, it will come up, Noah Reid, straight or gay. And,
I'm a reporter. I'm just telling you what's out there in the streets. I'm researching, excuse me. I'm researching, getting prepared for this conversation.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, I wonder if he knows what they're saying out here in these streets. I don't know if this news gets to Canada or not.
I don't dig too deep. I just gotta keep my wheels on the road. You know what I mean?
Understood. Any more kids?
I don't know. I think for now one feels like lots. It's an unpredictable career to work a family into, and my wife works full time, and so it's a juggling act. Like every day is a juggling act. Every time I get a new job or I go, okay, I'm going to be on tour, we have to first think like, okay, how is this going to work for the family? And that, I think anybody in the creative world and in the professional world for that matter, who's just, approaching family, these are the considerations you have to make. You have to go, okay, how does this work for everybody? And how does it work for the kid kind of first and foremost? So I think, for the moment we're kind of like, let's see how this goes. But I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, in a way, I love the idea of a big family, and in a way, I love the idea of a small family. And I think I feel very blessed to just have the family that I have, and we'll see. I'm trying to stay present.
As you are approached for roles going forward, how much, if any, does your family life play in terms of whether or not you consider taking something? Like if it's in Australia for like a year, are you doing, Lord of the Rings 12? I'm going to be guarded for like, 2 years or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we always talk about it, that it's really project dependent, and that the balancing act, I think 5 or 10 years ago, even I would I would have done jobs that I can't do now, just based on the quality of the project. Even if the money's no good or the location's super crazy far away, I'd be like, well, got to do it, because it's a great opportunity. And now, I've had to not do a few things just to kind of like, because the money doesn't work or the location doesn't work. But yeah, it's always a consideration. I think, probably it changes as things grow, and as everybody has to be, what's the quote that Paul Simon has about, like, in a relationship, there's like there's always a watering can and there's always a flower, and that in a good relationship, that kind of you can swap that out. So I think everybody needs to get watered from time to time, and so that's another balancing act that we kind of just try to figure out as my wife. I'm really proud of my wife's work, and it's deeply meaningful.
What does she do?
She's a psychiatric nurse and researcher, and she works with youth who are experiencing all range of emotional dysregulation and challenges. I mean, there's wild challenges that some of the kids that she works with and helps on a daily basis. And so, that work is incredibly important to her. It's incredibly important to me. And so we just try to figure out, how everyone's work can be accommodated and we can be effective and present and loving parents. And that balancing act is something we'll be working on our entire lives, I'm sure. So, no problem.
Well, one of my best friends, Pete, he also works in that field and has for a long time. And I don't know if this has been your experience with your wife, but I know whenever I'm around Pete, his ability to diffuse conflict or any rising tensions in the atmosphere is incredible. Like, I could be full on ready to be mad about something, and he'll boom, 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 boom. Next thing you know, everyone's laughing, and like, I don't get to go off. Like
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think her superpower is to, like, she really can make everyone feel so heard and listened to, and kind of absorb some of the really high tension, emotional realities of life. She really has an incredible way of validating that and reflecting that, and then from that place actively moving forward through the steps of, like, okay, how could we improve this situation? But her kind of standpoint is, if you don't validate the experience or the emotion, then you can't move into the problem solving space effectively, because you can't problem solve from a place of, I don't feel heard or understood. So yeah, that's been an incredible piece of I don't know, perspective for me in even in my creative life and in my work as an actor and as a songwriter, that the mental health space is expanding as the world gets crazier and crazier. We need more spaces to talk about and to kind of reflect what's going on internally, as the kind of the dial, it gets just ratcheted up, and everybody's more anxious than they've ever been in their lives, So I'm grateful to have her work to kind of, grow my understanding of that.
How did you two meet? You were already an established actor, already an established performer, because you've been doing it, since you were a kid. How did you trust that she wasn't, there for your career or there to be popular, but there for you?
I don't know. I don't think my career was anything to be latched onto at that point, but yeah, we met on a TV show. She was an actor as a kid, and so we met doing an episode of TV. It was one of her last jobs as an actor, and I was kidnapping her in this show, and we spent a couple days on set together. And I just remember feeling just like, just really, really drawn to her energy and the way that she talked about her experiences. And honestly, like, the idea that she was like, I don't really want to be an actor. I don't think this is for me. I was like, bingo, you got it. you understand, But she had,
But you stuck with it. You didn't understand.
totally. I was like, I want to get out too. Let's go together. And I a couple of times I've come close to not doing it anymore. But I'm pot committed. I've really learned how to do this thing, and now I have to kind of see it through. And it comes with some amazing upsides, and it comes with a lifetime of uncertainty. And I think that's the thing she was able to really identify and go, I don't know that that's for me. I think some people can do it. And she was like, and I don't think that I'm one of those people. I think that my skills and my calling is elsewhere. I really respect and admire her ability to listen to that and to follow it.
And so what was that first date like? Because she fell in love with her kidnapper, so I'm kind of wondering how did she move past the characters you two were portraying so that she could actually see you?
I don't know. We after that show, we remained friends for quite a while, and then started dating. Yeah, years later. So my hope is that the kidnapping was a distant memory at that point. But who knows? Who knows?
Is there a character that you're still dying to play, whether established or just a certain attributes of a person you would love to portray in film or stage?
It probably more on stage, just because those roles and those scripts are a little bit more canonized. I remember in high school I played John Proctor in The Crucible, and I was like, I would love to come back to this as a grown person, and also knowing that script, that beautiful, crazy Arthur Miller script was written during the period of McCarthyism, and that all of the parallels, that there is a history turning over, and it's happening now, that this kind of the witch hunt, both metaphorical and real. That's where that metaphor comes from. It's from real life events. That had a real impact on me as a young person. And so I think, yeah, I mean, I'm drawn definitely to the American classics. I love Shakespeare. I played Hamlet when I was 30, and that was a kind of a bucket list tick in the box for me. So I'd love to do more Shakespeare in my life. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's funny. Like you have these ideas or these goals, and then the industry is so unpredictable. There are times where I'm like, I wonder if I'll play any role again.
Broadway doesn't interest you?
Broadway does interest me. I did a show on Broadway in 2022, a Tracy Letts play called The Minutes, which was just an insane experience. And it was still kind of COVID, so it was a strange time to make a Broadway debut. We didn't have the big opening night party. We weren't allowed to go for a drink with each other after the show. It was odd, and my wife was pregnant at the same time, and I don't know if you've been to New York City, but it's not the most pregnant hospitable place. There's no place to sit.
I lived in New York City, but I wasn't pregnant at the time, so I don't really know if that's a struggle or not.
You haven't really been to New York City if you haven't been pregnant. It's
damn it.
It was a different lens on New York City, that's for sure. But yeah, that was a remarkable experience, and one that, I mean, you talk about the balance of do you think about projects that you can do or projects that you can't do, and Broadway is one of those ones now where I'm like, the time commitment and the theater really requires it requires your body to be on stage 8 times a week. And so, the balancing act of that and family life and being away from home, it's a little bit difficult for me to think about, going back there. And I would have loved to have, in another, 10 years earlier, been like, okay, great, I'm going to move to New York and I'm just going to ride this wave for a little while. But that's not my reality right now. So hopefully I'll be able to make it back there into some meaningful space in the future. But yeah, I don't know. I do think about theater a lot, and I try to do a play every few years to kind of keep myself honest and keep myself engaged in that side of myself, which I think is really kind of, I mean, that's an origin story place for me. I love the theater, and I think it's in some ways where I feel most at home, you know?
And you have such the perfect voice for the stage. It's hard for me not to see you like in the Music Man or any of the classic American musical theaters.
Yeah.
You know, you just, it's unfortunate that you do have that dynamic that is keeping you from the stage in that capacity, because between that or maybe the Royal Theatre in London, I just think you'd be actually awesome at it.
Yeah, well, you know, you never know. I think, you know, we always talk about like that it really depends on the project. And there've been a few opportunities to do some Broadway musical stuff, but strangely, it's not a real passion of mine. I love the plays. I don't feel particularly like my body allows me to occupy a music theater space. I've never been I've never been a good dancer. I've never, you know, when we did the episode of Cabaret for Schitt's Creek, it was like, I was like, okay, well, I get to access this from the point of view of a different human being. So maybe he feels differently about dancing than I do. And I can use that, you know? But I think there have been a few opportunities to do Broadway musicals. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know if I could really I'd want to really be able to do it and lean into it and enjoy it and not feel, self-conscious about it. Nobody wants to see a self-conscious performer on Broadway. It's just not what you go for. So I've got some growing to do maybe before I could do the Music Man.
That's good. That means you're not a finished product.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Last question for you. Any projects, in addition to the tour that you're currently on, of course, any projects that we can look forward to? Any more Tillerson projects or anything of that nature?
No Tillerson projects. I'm trying to get cracking on another record, which is, that's kind of occupying a lot of my time at the moment. And I'm going back on tour in September through the States and a bit of Western Canada, on about 36 dates on a tour I'm calling Live Again, the Live Again tour, which, you know, I'd love a little play on words, but yeah, the acting stuff, I got some stuff happening, but I don't think I'm allowed to announce it at the moment. So I'll hang on to it.
If you're like the new Iron Man or Captain America or something, if you don't tell us, I'm going to be mad at you. So.
No, we're not there yet, LZ, but I'll let you know.
Good. Noah Reid, Canadian actor, singer, non-dancer. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Nice to chat with you.
You as well.